first, and Kamani.
Okay. At one time, many astronomers assumed that Earth remains motionless while the stars revolve around it. They concluded from this that the stars were not more than a few million miles from Earth. They reasoned that if the stars were further away, they would have to move at tremendously great speeds in order to circle Earth during the day and reappear in roughly the same positions each night.
All right, so go ahead and explain that to us. I thought this was a tricky stimulus.
So the first sentence is just like background that at one time many astronomers assumed that Earth remained motionless while the stars, but then they concluded that it was.
Yeah, so like I'm even envisioning this. I'm like, okay, they thought like the Earth stood still and the stars just moved around. Cool.
Yes.
Okay, go on. And then who would they here?
The astronomers.
Yes, awesome. So these many astronomers concluded what?
That the stars were not more than a few miles from Earth, so that they were looking at the distance of where the stars were.
No, we're still talking about the stars going around the Earth, but we're saying that they were just a few million miles away. Cool.
Yes. And then they reasoned that if the stars were farther away than what they concluded, then they would have to go really, really fast.
Yeah, because if they're way out here, like imagine how fast they would have to do to get around the Earth. I'm just thinking like the stars like flying. All right.
Reappear in the same position. So that was like the reasoning that it was the speed, because in order for it to go so fast, it had to, I hope I'm saying this right. It had to go so fast. So that's why they concluded the distance, because if it wasn't that distance, then it was the speed.
Yes. So our conclusion here is that they concluded from this that the stars were not more than a few million miles from Earth. Did everybody have that good of an understanding of the stimulus when they went into this question? Awesome. All right, so then what kind of question is this, Jessica?
Necessary assumption.
Yes.
Love those.
So so it's something that's needed in order for this to be true, that the stars were not more than a few million miles from the Earth. What answers would we cross off?
Wait, sorry, I just have a question. Like, so do we have to have a prephrase for this? Because I couldn't.
Prediction. Necessary assumption questions are, you can make a very loose prediction for. Your necessary assumption prediction is the least likely to be true because there can be so many. So here, like I'm thinking that I mean, like I guess like for me, I'd be like that stars can't travel at tremendously great speeds. Like that would be necessary, right? But I think there could be a million other things that the answer could be.
Yeah, okay. So like, do you just recommend just like going to the asterisk right away? Like trying to understand
I would definitely understand the stimulus. Sometimes on necessary assumption questions, there is going to be a very obvious, like something like, oh, this would be needed. But yes, I would absolutely make predictions if you can, but just be more open-minded on necessary assumption questions because your prediction could be wrong. But the goal of that prediction is just to get you going in the right direction. Like, hey, what's needed for this to be true? Like I mean, technically that there are stars, like that would be needed, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what ones would we cross off?
I got rid of B.
Okay, why?
Well, it says all stars, and that's like really strong language first. But also too, like, it's not necessary for the conclusion if they move at the same speed.
Right. We're just saying that they're not more than a few miles from Earth. So if they don't all move at the same speed, who cares? Fabulous. All right, what other ones did we cross off? I bet a lot of people did anybody pick C for the answer?
Yeah.
People are just drawn to C. And I mean, no offense, Jessica, it makes no sense.
I know.
Like, but people are drawn to C like none other on this question.
But now that I look at C, I'm like, wait, like, didn't they think it did remain motionless? Like,
Yeah.
I was just like, when I reread this, I was like, did I just like make my own assumption?
Well, but like, because what happens if Earth does not remain emotionless though? Could the stars still not be more than a few miles away?
Yeah.
This goes back to that whole thing of just because something isn't true doesn't guarantee, like just because like my evidence or my proof isn't true doesn't guarantee that the conclusion's not right. I mean, the Earth could be moving all over the place and the stars could still only be not more than a few miles away. All right, what other ones did we cross off?
D.
Yeah, why?
We don't have to necessarily assume that stars don't move at tremendously great speeds. Like we don't even know what great speeds are. Like great speeds could be like.
What are great speeds? Stars were not more than, and even if they could move at tremendously great speeds, that doesn't mean that the stars are not more than a few million. Like maybe they do move at a really, really, really crazy speed, but they're still only a few miles away.
Yeah.
All right.
D wrong?
Oh, sorry. That was my pre-phrase, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought that was it.
Yeah, sorry, go back to it. Sorry, sorry, I'm sorry, Mohit. I was gonna go with.
I was like, wait.
Yeah, I circled D and I was like, oh, I guess I got it wrong again.
Oh no, that literally was my pre-phrase. Stars do not move, but yes, because stars do not move at tremendously great speeds. Because we're saying our reasoning for why they can't be more than a few million miles away. And it says an assumption required by the reasoning. So our reasoning is this here. And it says that they would have to move at tremendously great speeds in order for them to be farther. Well, we're assuming that stars cannot move at a tremendously great speed. Do you see that, Mohib?
Yeah, I do see that.
Sorry, I was gonna go with you too. I was like, yeah, the stars, just because they do not move. But if stars do, I think when I negated it in my head when you said it, I did do not twice. So, but if stars do move at tremendously great speeds, then we have no reason to assume that the stars were not more than a few miles away from Earth, because all of our support would go out the window. All right, why is E wrong?
I feel like isn't E a could be true? Like it's not a must be
Star
true.
that's more than a million miles away could appear in roughly the same position each night. I feel like that is like almost like if that were true, it almost like hurts our conclusion. It's almost like a weakener.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely not needed, right? Like just like, do we need it to be true that a star could appear in more than a million miles away at the same position? Does that need to be true for our conclusion?
No, and you helped my light bulb just switch. Finally, I get these necessary assumptions.
Yay!
Finally.
Necessary questions are very hard for our brains to grasp how to go about them, but once you know how to go about them, they're actually pretty easy. But it's hard to remember like what you're trying to do with them. All right, so then why is A wrong?
Me?
Anybody?
Oh, not me.
Like if the stars do not revolve around Earth, it is possible for at least some of the stars to be more than a few million miles. Like we don't care, right?
Yeah.
Like, even if the stars don't revolve around Earth, it is possible for at least some of them to be more than a few million miles from Earth. Like, what is that? Do we need that to be true in order for our conclusion that the stars were not more than a few? Like, no, that's that once again, that almost would weaken it. Do we all see why D is the correct answer?
Yes, because they reason that if the stars were further away, they would have to move at tremendously great speeds in
Mhm.
order to circle Earth during, okay, and so it's needed that they, okay, I get it.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, like they're assuming here that stars can't move at tremendously great speeds. They're thinking like, hey, they can't be farther out because they would have to move at great speeds. Well, what's stopping the stars from moving from great speeds? All right. Do you guys, everybody have time to do 26?
Yep.
Okay, cool. It's a reasoning question. All right, I'll go ahead and read this one.